Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Brooke Shang. Brooke, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been investing in real estate for 3 years now. So I started just going through different educations. I go to a lot of meetups, even these days.
Yeah.
So I network like crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would kind of move so fast. So I've done quite a lot. I've done rental homes is my main strategy. I've done duplexes. I've done lending with flippers.
Yep.
Yeah, I've also done syndicated mortgages. Yeah, so it's been 3 years and it's been crazy.
3 years and it's just blown up. That's a good problem.
That's the problem because opportunities keep coming, right?
So what's your story? How did you get started in this?
So I started by taking Rich Dad Poor Dad education.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually stayed at home for 10 years. I was a stay-at-home mom. And I started working 10 years after I stayed at home, just thinking, what can I do? I actually have a job. I was excited.
Yeah.
I always like real estate. So when I saw the ad, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to learn about real estate.
Yeah.
And that was 2 years after I went back in the workforce. We had some money because we're in Toronto.
Yep.
So we had equity in the home. That's actually how we started, using our money to invest. We used our HELOC. At first, I was a money partner in a joint venture because I want to learn how to do it. And, everybody caps out, right?
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of helping families. So I did lease option for a while. Mm-hmm. It's not easy in the beginning because you have to interview a lot of tenant buyers and go through the process. It's not a straightforward strategy. So my first deal actually came pretty quickly, like only a few months after I took the course.
Yeah. So you finished the course and you went right into the lease option right off the bat?
The first one I did was a single family home.
Yep.
And then my next deal was lease option.
Okay. So let's tell us about the lease option, and then maybe we'll break down how the lease option works and go through that.
Yeah. So basically, lease option is for people who cannot qualify for a mortgage now. Maybe their down payment, maybe they're new immigrants, they don't have credit history yet.
Yeah.
So during the time they rent, it's usually 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
They pay regular rent, and then we help them save up, which will convert to down payment at the end of the program. So they come and basically go through a qualifying process as anybody qualifying for a mortgage. So the mortgage broker will let me know, they can qualify today. In 2 to 4 years, they can qualify on how fast they can fix their credit and their income, and also how much they come in the program with and how much we need to save up with them.
Yes. So when you're doing your typical lease options, what do you expect for a down payment? Are you looking for a set amount or a percentage of the purchase price, or what works best for you?
At least 2%, and I would say minimum of $10,000.
Okay.
Because I did have a rental, which is in Windsor. The property is only $160,000.
Yeah.
$10,000 is the minimum, I would say. So they have some stake in the game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take any less than that. Because
Okay.
because there's closing costs and all the costs are still there.
Yeah.
You still want them to have stake in the game.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that they have the ability to close. So, probably, unless this is a long lease option, they're going to need to have some cash to close this property, right? So it's, by having $10,000 is a good number. And that's one thing I was discussing the possibility of doing lease options on some of my properties in Kansas City. And the problem is that the properties are so cheap. If you were going to ask for $10,000, you're asking for, in some of the cases, 30% down of the property, which is kind of insane, So, okay, so let's go more into lease options. Tell me more about them.
So the good thing is for the investors, your down payment is reduced because they come in with an initial option, which is their commitment, right, to come in the program. So say, for example, if they come in with $15,000, you use that for closing.
That's
So
perfect. Yeah.
yeah, so your cash on cash return is higher to begin with, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I usually save the tenant buyers to 10% of down payment.
Hmm.
So meaning if their purchase price at the end is $500,000, they would need to save up $50,000 with us.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so
So
you
do you expect them to do all the saving themselves, or do you do the saving for them?
we do the saving for them. You don't know what they're gonna do with their money.
So you basically, if I'm just guessing at this, the way you would do it is if you're doing like say a 3 year or 5 year term, you just would, if they need $50,000, you just sort of divide the math up, and you're going to have to pay an extra, $400 a month on top of your rent, say, to make this all work out at the end, something like that.
Yeah, so say if it's a $500,000 home,
Yeah.
they come in with $10,000, meaning they still need to save up $40,000, right?
Hmm.
So we just divide that up. Say if it's a three-year rent to own, then it would be 36 months. So 40,000 divided by 36, that's how much extra they have to. Yeah, so it's the same as if they just do it themselves, right? We let them get in the market sooner
Yeah.
with professionals.
And do you find that they're better tenants than if, or I don't know if you do regular rent to owns, is having skin in the game, does it make do you find that they still pay on time? Do you still have to deal with the landlord tenant board with lease options?
I do have regular rental properties.
Yeah.
Rental tenants are a lot better in the sense they're homeowners.
Yeah.
They know the house is gonna be theirs, so they would take care of it by far. I'm dealing, yeah, I've dealt with a lot of different tenant issues, not on the rental properties.
Yeah.
And they know if they don't pay, they don't have the rights to buy anymore. They basically give up the rights to buy,
Hmm.
and they're gonna forfeit their initial deposit too, right? So.
And how do you determine what the end purchase price would be?
So I usually appreciate it annually for the 4, 5, 6%.
Hmm.
So it has to be reasonable, right? Because most of the market I'm buying these houses at, they're appreciating at 10%, 12%,
Yeah.
or 5% appreciation. We're still making pretty good profits.
Yeah, and I guess if you went the opposite way, went way too high, and then at the end they may not be able to like get a loan on the property because the property won't may not appraise at that price, right? If you went too high, right?
Yeah, and because we qualify them, we qualify mortgage for them, right? So we do the same thing, stress test, knowing how much they make. We're not going to sell them at a price they are not going to afford.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, what was I going to ask? So, what are the? I guess that's some of the advantages. What other advantages are there to doing a lease option?
So your cash flow will be a lot higher versus a regular rental, because whatever they need to save up, they have to pay you on a monthly basis. So on top of the rent, you have the cash flow from their we call it option deposit. So we have the monthly option deposit. As
Okay.
Yeah, that's why That's why people do rental because you want the cash flow. You're not sitting there waiting for appreciation or your equity to increase, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. It's all anticipated. You know you know how it's going to end. It's predictable, which I love. Predictable. I love that you can, if you can. That's one of the reasons I do a lot of stuff and farm stuff out, because if you can make it set amounts, even if it's a little bit more expensive, it's predictable. It's I don't know. It makes everything less stressful.
Yeah.
So you have all these lease options, and you ideally have better tenants. They have the ability to fix the property up because they're going to be the ones owning it compared to a regular tenant. What percentage do they close? Have you found that they are able to close these properties every time, or how often is it that they forfeit all that savings they've done? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because I only done it for 3 years.
Yep.
Haven't finished the rental terms yet. Most of them are 3-year term.
Mm-hmm.
They're all on track to complete the rental. The good thing is, I think I usually check the comps on the markets of these houses.
Yep.
Almost all of them are already at the price they're going to be purchased at. So that means when they buy the house, they already have the equity in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unless they lose their job or they screw up their credit, they're on track, and I make them check their credit at least periodically, have a
Okay.
year or annually.
Yeah.
I did have a tenant who lost his job, and so he didn't pay for 1 month. He was late, and then I found out he subleased the place to somebody else. So I almost took away his right to purchase.
Yeah.
However, so he was actually one of the tenant buyer I thought could finish in 2 years and on
Yeah.
track. And he first time homeowner RSP and the because he is union, he's on track to make another $8,000 a year the next year. This he works in Oshawa, and the plan moved to the States.
Oh.
Yeah, so they were in training. So he found another job. However, there's a period of training. They don't get the full pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I found out he subleased it to somebody else. So we worked it out. So it actually worked out better because I think the new tenants, they do pay on time, and
So
you know,
I guess
yeah.
I guess that works for him, right? Yeah. And that's almost interesting. I wonder if you should have a clause in that for the next one that you can't sublease, because I have a lease option myself, and I'm like, should I have something like that in there? I wonder. So I see you're a little lenient with this. What happens at the end? I know that if they can't close, they technically forfeit it. Would there be any flexibility to that, or is it like you're running a business and?
No, I would say if they need a little bit more time, it's in the contract saying if they let go of the rights, then that's that.
Yeah.
I would think, if we think the tenant is still on track, they just need a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's up to us. We can have that option and help them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or if we really want to sell the property, we can sell it, and then use their option for closing costs, lawyer fee, etc., or fixing up the place, or the place. So yeah, they have to know they might not see it if they must not see the deposit if they let go. Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say the lease Ontario Tenant Board terms are still in effect because there's a lease contract.
Yes.
So they're not supposed to sublease.
No, yeah, I guess they're not. And that's another thing we should mention. Like whenever you're doing this, you are signing two contracts, because there's one that's the lease and there's one that's the option to purchase. But I think what could be confusing is that everyone calls it a lease option, which makes it sound like it's one piece of paper.
Yeah, that's because there's lease and then there's option contract. So,
yes, yeah. What's some of the disadvantages of doing a lease option?
Some investors will say you're leaving money on the table. Most likely, the property will be more than what they're selling the property to the tenant at.
Mm-hmm.
So in Oshawa, for example, if you can make $100,000 more, you're only making say $50,000. I'm just throwing the number out there. Yeah. Then some investors will say that I'm leaving money on the table, regardless of the contract. I still feel it because it is investment. However, you have to honor the contract, and I think that's a disadvantage. And because it's usually 2 to 4 year term, you constantly have to look for a new rent to own. So if you're looking for long-term hold, then you have to look for new tenant buyers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a disadvantage because you're doing the same thing. We're doing several strategies. You're not restricted to just do rent to own. You have long-term holds. You have rent to own to give you the cash flow. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Do you find that it takes longer to find a lease option person compared to a tenant?
Oh yeah. Yeah. One thing is they have to fit a certain criteria. You know how hard it is to be homeowners, right?
Yeah.
So somebody has to be close to qualifying for a mortgage. So we give them the 2 to 4 year time frame. So most of the tenant buyers make a lot of money because I'm doing it in Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
So minimum is about $80,000. So times 4 or 5 stress test. So that's a property of $400,000. So they have to make at least that. And most of them are making 6 figures. If you want to be homeowners in Southern Ontario, or there are 2 or 3 people working in the household. to make the program work. Yeah. So household income is actually pretty high, and their credit has to be fixable, right? Or somebody who missed several mortgage payments, we're not going to able to help them. Nobody's gonna give them mortgage. Yeah.
You
So
can't fix it for them. You can help them, but they have to be able to help themselves.
yeah. So yes, they have to help themselves. So we have to let them know they have to fix their credit, or the mortgage broker will look at the report saying you should pay this and that first. So sometimes we have to take that into account. So if they did that, are they still able to afford rent to own? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a tenant, like most of the tenants are actually doing pretty well. It's not your typical tenant.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't be able to take them on the program. At least in Ontario. Like in the States, it might be different, right?
Yeah. So for yours, do you find the property first, or you find the tenant first and then get them a property that they want?
I find the tenant first, because if you have a I'm not against the idea. If the opportunities are sure, I can do a sandwich lease option. However, the property is already set, a set price, a set property. You have to find the tenant to fit to it. So that's a lot harder than giving a tenant buyer budget. They just look on MLS and realtor.
Yeah. Yeah, they could find property that fits. So for finding these people, how do you advertise? Are you just using like Craigslist and Kijiji, or what? How does your marketing look?
I started by posting on Kijiji.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work because then I have to talk to them on the phone. Well, first you look at their profile. If you think they're worth your time, talk to them on the phone. So I did when I started the first 2 deals. So basically, I think I talked to 200 people, and then
Wow.
I qualified 2 because the 110 and 1% rule, like 100.
Yeah.
Hierarchical 10% worth qualifying, and 1% will come in the program.
Yeah.
I only did that for my first 2 deals. The other deals are either from wholesalers or referrals right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that makes sense. Like you just got to find a pipeline of the people too, right? And
yeah, like I think there are people who are really strong at marketing. So they know how to use Google Ads. They know how much each lead cost. I did that. I found it really time consuming. I got a lot better. Sometimes I was on the phone with them just listening to their problems.
yeah.
And I realized, okay, I can get the questions I need in 10, 15 minutes. So sometimes 40-minute call is not only 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Still, that's a lot of time, right? That's still a lot of your time.
So if you had somebody, like, maybe I misheard that, but you got someone else to find you some of these tenant buyers, right? Mm-hmm. Do you pay them a bird dog fee or something like that? Or are they worked into the end of how do you work them into this whole?
So wholesaling is like, it's the same thing as people finding property if they're flipping. So they find the tenant buyer.
Yeah.
The tenant buyer has to qualify, and, the program has to, I pay them if they found a property and they're committed to the program. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much the same thing as you pay, somebody a wholesale fee or.
Okay. Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, how much would you pay like a bird dog or basically a wholesaler to find you people? How much is that?
Depends how well the deal is packaged. If they already find a tenant buyer, they put in the commitment fee, they probably even have a house under contract, then I would pay them more. However, it's no more than it cannot be more than the initial deposit the tenant buyer comes in with.
Oh yeah, no, that would make sense. Yeah.
So the wholesale fee, if it's a qualified referral, if it's a mortgage broker, I basically just pay them a finder's fee. So if it's from a wholesaler, they usually charge 1.5 to 2%.
Okay.
Sometimes the deals are bad. I need to fix the deal. I have to put in a lot of work.
Uh-huh.
They found a property or somebody qualified for the house, and then they're so close, then the investor came off the deal kind of thing, couldn't qualify, then I can pick up the deal if I'm able to fix it.
Yeah.
The wholesale fee will be lower because there's more work, and I'm basically fixing the whole deal.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Yeah.
What else do I need to ask you about lease options?
I don't think I can say specifically how much the return is, right?
Yeah. No, you don't need to. But...
Yeah. So typically, I do joint ventures. So, people do duplex joint ventures, and I've done that too.
Yeah.
So I look for investors who can qualify and who can come in with a down payment.
Yep.
Something 50-50, so cash flow is half.
Yep.
However, the expense is a lot lower. There's no utility because they pay for all the utilities. Um, and
Yep.
then we basically just pay petty. So mortgage, mortgage, property tax, and our costs, and then debt servicing.
Yep.
After everything is paid, we split the profit.
Yep.
So usually, I'll just give you an idea. A
Yep.
typical house would be 400 or 500 because that's a range, and that's still in the range that the tenant buyer can qualify for.
Yep.
So a house of that range, the cash on cash return, I usually do a deal that's 30% or more.
Yep.
If I split half with an investor, they probably want to see at least around 15% of the return. And the cash flow for something like that, if the tenant buyer comes in with, say, $10,000 or $15,000, cash flow would be around 1,400. So 1,000 to 1,400, something like that. That's the price. That's the range.
Okay, so then if you're doing this with in a joint venture model instead of the regular model with just yourself, say they gave you $15,000 as the upfront, do you split that at that point, or does it go into an escrow account? What happens to that during the term of this lease option?
So that's also split between
Okay.
the investors. So say they come in with 20, and then 10 will go to the investor.
Yeah.
What happens is most of the tenant buyer would pay before closing.
Yeah.
So we usually receive it before closing. Then I would receive the first month rent and then the option.
Yeah.
Then I would distribute the profits.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing your JV would qualify for the loan as well?
They would qualify for the loan, yes.
Okay.
I've also have cases where the investor needed the whole option consideration to go in the down payment or to close the deal. So there are different ways. In general, is everything is split half-half.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's like with anything. Anytime you're not dealing with a bank and you're dealing with seller financing or a lease option or any of these things, it's all negotiable. It can be whatever you worked out with somebody to make the deal work.
Yeah. Yeah. So because I've done also just regular rentals, I've converted a few duplexes. So when you look at it, each door, I would say, cash flow about people just say, oh, I cash flow $500. To conservatively say, I think you cash flow $100, $200 per door, because investor will use HELOC for the down payment.
Yeah.
We also debt financing if we're converting and we use construction loan or finance the conversion. So for rent to own, you can think about it as so say if it's $1,000, that's already 4 or 5 doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cash flow is good. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's exciting.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's one of those techniques that does work well in Ontario. Like I find that there's certain techniques that don't work as well. I won't get into specifics, but it's one of those ways that you can guarantee your way through the whole thing and make it work.
You know how hard it is to make a single family home cash flow?
I know. Yeah, that's where I was going with it. I know, like, a lot of these properties around are 400,000. I'm selling some of my rental properties that I had in Canada, and I'm selling them for double what I paid for them. And I'm like, and I'm 2 investors, and I'm like, I don't know how you guys are doing it, because I'm selling it off because it doesn't make sense to me at half that price. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they put in a lot of down payment. That's why they cash flow, because the debt is lower, right? But if we're investing, we leverage. So we're not going to put in 40-50% down payment.
Yep.
I was going to say I want to replace my income. So that's why I do rent to own, because cash flow is good.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you can like if you have a cash flow of 1,400 versus you have $200 per door, right?
Yeah.
You know how much longer and how much work you'll have to do versus if you do lease option, and you can get a lot. You can replace that income a lot faster.
So you think you get more money by doing the lease options, eh?
Cash flow.
More, you think the cash flow is higher? I guess like for me, compared whenever I'm doing a lease option, I'm not using property management because I kind of don't need them anymore. Where even in the States, because it's sort of like, hey, you don't pay, you've just voided the contract. So we don't have to deal with the landlord contract and be like, yeah, I'm not. If you're not going to pay, you're going to lose out on all your money. So I can save myself the property management fee.
Like, because tenant pay for the repair. So that makes a lot of that makes a big difference.
That is one thing we really should cover. Yes, that the tenants are paying the maintenance. So
Yeah.
I think as long as it's like within reason, like it's what do you put them completely? Like if a furnace went on your lease option, would you make them pay for the furnace?
In that case, we usually lease, so it's only so monthly payment wouldn't be that bad.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a rental that happened at the end of last year when it was really windy.
Yeah.
So in that contract, I usually tell tenants how much they can spend on repair, because you want them to increase the value of the property. You don't want them to spend $10,000 and then they couldn't qualify because they screw up. They use their credit card to renovate, that kind of stuff. So in this case, the house is old, like 100 years old. It's in Kingston, and there are 2 chimneys because older houses have chimneys. Nobody uses chimneys now.
Yeah.
And then the second day of closing, a tree fell on the house because older properties, they have like big trees around it. So, he's supposed to pay for the renovation and repair. So that's part of repair. We have insurance that cover most of it.
Yes.
And he's responsible for the deductible though, because that's repair costs.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense, right? So they're just in charge of the deductible. So it's not like in charge of like the furnace. You could use the insurance, right? You're not in charge. And for your lease options, do you pay the insurance or do they pay the insurance?
We have to pay the insurance because we're the owner. They still purchase tenant insurance.
Yeah.
There's a lease. So the good thing is they have to fulfill their obligation as tenants. You still have the Ontario lease.
Yep.
Which I don't think helps landlord anyways.
No.
Now I know how to be professional tenants. Anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, then everything else, basically, your option contract protects you in terms of repair, in terms of what they have to do, how much they can spend. So yeah, and because they come in thinking it's their home, so they usually. The funny thing is, I would say don't spend too much on the repair. They usually come back to say, I want to spend more, because it's their home.
Yes.
Yeah. They didn't think we were protecting them, and it's not under their name yet. They usually come back to say, I don't want just $2,000. I don't want just $3,000. I want $5,000 or I want $10,000, right?
Yeah, they want to fix it up. Huh.
And some tenants, a lot of people are self-employed, right? Well, we are too, doing real estate. So, that's why they don't have a track record of T4s, or they need to build their credits a lot of the times. So a lot of the time they're contractors.
That's what we're using as our lease options is contractors. Yeah, those are the people who are doing the rent to own.
Yeah, so they think they're handy. They don't want you to restrict what they can do. So we put it in there so they don't overspend or screw up. Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to close it.
That you want them to be able to close it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so for lease options, to quick summarize it, you get money at the start. You'll get the down payment. So there's 3 ways. I think the way they do lease options, and when I took the course, it's 3 ways to win. So you'll get your money off the start, a cash flow throughout, and then money on the exit. And it's all locked in a contract. And it is an option to purchase at the end. They aren't obligated to purchase the property. They have the option to purchase it. So should they decide to leave, just like a tenant, they can just basically walk away and stop doing the whole program just like a tenant would.
Yeah, they wouldn't if they want to see their
I know. It's a bad idea because they've put a down payment in and they've paid additional money every month is definitely a bad idea to do, but they do have that option. And that's one thing to keep in mind if you're starting getting more flexible because you're really hungry to have a lease optioner, and you might be like, I'm going to take less down payment. I'm going to take less money to save every month so that I can get somebody in there because I want to keep the rent nice and low. But you might realize that by the end of it, you just have a tenant because they don't have enough skin to not walk away.
Yeah, and I don't think you want to deal with that if at the end they couldn't qualify, right?
Yeah, because if you're doing this ethically, you do have the intention that you want them to close. You want this whole thing to go. You're not in the business of trying to steal down payments and stuff, but you're trying to get them to close, and it's a way to guarantee your exit. You can save yourself some realtor fees. You can make it predictable. But yeah.
Yeah, so I think the tenant buyer put a lot of trust in us because there's a lot of bad news on rental.
Yes.
Yeah, because if the investor decided not to sell, right? Because now the price is so high, why would I want to sell low? So actually, my first rent-to-own tenant buyer, he was in that situation. So his previous rent-to-own, it was in Barrie, and I saw the house on the map. It's gorgeous. So their agreed price is in the 400s.
Yeah.
It's now in 900 something. It's a huge property.
Yeah.
It's in Barrie, and that was 2016. So that was my first rent to own. And I didn't tell him that was my first one, and he trusted me. And he actually went through a bad rent to own. And I think that's why some people don't think rent to own is a good way to go, because the 10 buyers sometimes think it's risky if you go with somebody who doesn't care about their reputation in that case. Yeah. So we did look at the contract. We were thinking, maybe we can buy the house for him and buy it at a lot lower than the market price. The contract wasn't set up right. It said at an agreed price. It didn't specify what the option price is. So.
Oh, it didn't have an option price. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, he didn't know how to do it right? So I guess that's why, some people don't trust that rent to own could work.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever convert a tenant into a rent to own?
Yes, I was actually thinking about a couple tenants.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that. Yeah. There's one because they're newcomers.
Yeah.
I think they could get help building their credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
cool.
I see the potential.
Brooke, if people wanted to get a hold of you to talk lease options or private lending or anything else, what's the best way to do so?
They can send me an email. Did I give you the email?
Sure. Yeah. I can put it in my email. I can put it in the show notes afterwards, or you can even say it, whatever you like.
Oh, okay. It's Brooke at trustyourtalent.ca.
Okay. And I'll put it in the show notes as well if people are looking for it, if you want an easy copy and paste.
Oh, yeah. So because I'm starting to do coaching and teaching as well, it's kind of just a natural progression.
Yeah.
You know how people contact you and ask you a lot of questions?
I know. I really do.
Or ask for a referral.
Yeah.
So I did work for Rich Education for a period of time.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to get into teaching and coaching. I started by helping out or coordinating in class. And so I think I built some experience and anyways.
Yeah, now you can do it yourself without the whole thing behind you. That's great.
Yeah. So I'm also, this will keep going. I will keep doing rent to own. My goal is to do different things because you probably get bored too, right? Or you want to learn something new.
Oh, definitely. You always get you anytime it's going too well, you're just like, you know what? Let's try something else. Let's make my life difficult again.
Okay. Let's make your life difficult again.
Yeah, exactly. Try another technique. Put another tool in the toolbox.
That's right. And for a lot of, I don't know if you feel the same way too. For real estate, if you just start to do one or two deals, you kind of almost an expert in that area already. If you do a few, even conversions, if you start to flip, because you learn so much, especially the first deal or even the second one, right?
Yeah, the more you do, the better, more you know, and you get to be really good at one thing. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, Brooke. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, anytime. It was just fun to chat.
Yeah, we might have to come back and talk private lending too one time.
Yes. So I do that because, it's passive.
Yeah.
And when you don't have time and you know how real estate number works, so rental is basically creative financing, right? You kind of bridge the mortgage between the tenant until they could buy. So so a lot of numbers. And if you're familiar with that, if you're doing flips and you've done rentals, lending could work.
Yeah. Oh. And that's actually, maybe I'll technically for 1 second, but that's how we met. That's how Brooke and I met, because I was looking for private lending, and we worked together, and she helped me finish one of my projects. Yeah. Well, we'll talk all night. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure I'll see you again when I go to North York to the meetup. But thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lan. We'll chat soon.